y'all watch the debate, please. What an incredible array of talent on that stage. Young, dynamic, inspirational leaders. How fantastic that we have so many standing up to lead our party and to lead this country. And what a contrast with the Democrats. You know, I'm pretty sure the Democrats' first debate is going to be Hillary Clinton and the Chipotle Clinton. Well, no. Actually, that's not fair. We can't forget about Bernie Sanders. So now, the Democratic field consists of a wild-eyed socialist with ideas that are dangerous for America and the world, and Bernie Sanders. You know, it is pretty amazing watching the Democrats. They keep delaying their debate. First it was September, then it was October, then it was November. Yeah, I think they may just move their first debate to 2017. And it's not widely known, but the Democrats actually had planned to have an early debate. The problem was the debate invitation was emailed to Hillary. We are here tonight because America is in crisis. We're here tonight because we're bankrupt and our kids are grandkids. We're here tonight because our constitutional rights are under assault from Washington. And we're here tonight because America has receded from leadership in the world, and it has made the world a much more dangerous place. And yet I'm here with a word of hope, a word of encouragement, a word of exhortation. All across America, Americans are waking up, and help is on the way. So I want to ask each of you to look forward. Look forward to January 2017. If I am elected president, the first thing I intend to do on the first day in office is rescind every single illegal and unconstitutional executive action taken by this president. The president likes to say he's got a phone and he's got a pen. Well, you live by the pen, you die by the pen. And my pen has got an eraser. But you know, sadly, the corruption of this administration has not been limited to the White House. It has pervaded every agency of federal government, and this is the most lawless, partisan Department of Justice we have ever seen. The second thing I intend to do on the first day in office is instruct the United States Department of Justice to open an investigation into Planned Parenthood. And to prosecute any and all criminal violations by that organization. The administration of justice should be blind to party or ideology. The only fidelity at the Department of Justice should be to the Constitution and laws of the United States of America. The third thing I intend to do on the first day in office is instruct the Department of Justice and the IRS and every other federal agency that the persecution of religious liberty ends today. That means that every serviceman and woman is free to pray and worship God Almighty with his heart, mind, and soul, and his commanding officer has nothing to say about it. That means that the Little Sisters of the Poor, a Catholic charity currently being persecuted, will find that the case against them has been dismissed. You know, on Friday night we did a rally in Iowa for religious liberty. We brought together 9 heroes from across this country who have stood up for their faith and been persecuted, and they told their stories. The media say this isn't happening. We brought them up one after the other after the other. Dick and Betty Odegaard, Melissa and Aaron Klein, Chief Cochran in Atlanta, Nameh Abedini, the wife of Pastor Saeed Abedini. Let me encourage every one of you, if you want to be lifted up, if you want to have your spirit lifted up by profiles and courage, go to our website, tedcruz.org, and simply watch the videos, watch the stories of these heroes standing for faith and being persecuted and standing strong, and I promise you, your spirit will be uplifted. The fourth thing I intend to do, the first day in office, is rip to shreds this catastrophic Iranian nuclear deal. You know, a few weeks ago, I observed that if this deal goes through, the Obama administration, quite literally, will become the world's leading financier of radical Islamic terrorism. You know, President Obama got very, very upset that I said that. He interrupted his busy world travels in between the 8th and 9th holes to attack me directly. He said, that is ridiculous. Cruz can't say that. That rhetoric is too much. Let me give you a very simple principle. Truth is not rhetoric. And in the entire course of his attack, President Obama didn't actually bother to try to refute the substance of what I said. So let's review the facts. Fact number 1. Iran is today the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. Fact number 2. If this deal goes through, over $100 billion will flow directly into Iran. Fact number 3. If that happens, billions of those dollars will go directly to Hamas, to Hezbollah, to the Houthis, to radical Islamic terrorists throughout the globe. And they will use those billions to murder Americans, to murder Israelis, to murder Europeans. If President Obama doesn't like the rhetoric of his administration becoming the world's leading financier of radical Islamic terrorism, there is an easy solution. Stop financing radical Islamic terrorism. The fifth thing I intend to do on the first day in office is begin the process of moving the American embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, the once and eternal capital of Israel. Now, you know, a lot of presidential candidates, both Republican and Democrat, have made that same promise. And yet, inevitably, when they get to the White House, their team comes to them and says, well, you know, if you do this, other folks in the Middle East will be really, really upset with us. Well, if you hadn't noticed, They're already pretty upset with us. And I'll tell you the single biggest difference between me and the other fine gentlemen standing on that stage in Cleveland is that with me, when I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do exactly what I said I would do. That's day one. There are 365 days in a year, 4 years in a presidential term, and 4 years in a second term. By the end of 8 years, there are going to be an awful lot of newspaper reporters and editors and journalists who have checked themselves into therapy. In the days that follow, I will go to Congress and we will repeal every word of Obamacare. In the days that follow, I will instruct the Federal Department of Education, which should be abolished. I will instruct the Department of Education that Common Core ends today. In the days that follow, we will rebuild our military and we will honor the commitments that have been made to our soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines. And we will allow our servicemen and women to exercise their right to keep and bear arms and defend themselves. We saw what happened when one radical Islamic terrorist bearing a Kalashnikov runs into 3 young Americans unarmed but filled with American bravery who took them down. And the next time a jihadist shows up at a recruiting station in Chattanooga, he's going to meet the business end of firearms wielded by a dozen Marines. In the days that follow, we will finally secure the borders and end sanctuary cities. We will stop the Obama administration's indefensible practice of releasing violent, criminal, illegal aliens, and we will pass Kate's Law. In the days that follow, we will rein in the federal regulators from the EPA and the CFPB and the alphabet soup of Washington that have descended on small businesses and are killing jobs. And in the days that follow, I will go to Congress and we will pass fundamental tax reform, passing a simple flat tax. So that every American can fill out his or her taxes on a postcard. And when we do that, we should abolish the IRS. There are about 90,000 employees at the IRS. We need to padlock that building. Take all 90,000 and put them down on our southern border. Now, To our friends in the media, I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek. But if you think about it, Betty, imagine you'd traveled thousands of miles in the blazing sun. You're swimming across the Rio Grande. And the first thing you see is 90,000 IRS agents. You'd turn around and go home too. Now, some of y'all may be thinking, all of this makes sense to me. It's simple common sense. Live within your means. Don't bankrupt your kids and grandkids. Follow the Constitution. But can it be done? Can we do it? You know, Scripture tells us there's nothing new under the sun. I think where we are today is very, very much like the late 1970s. Same failed economic policies, same misery, stagnation, and malaise. Same feckless and naive foreign policy. In fact, the exact same countries, Russia and Iran, openly laughing at and mocking the President of the United States. Now, why is it that analogy gives me so much comfort? Because we know how that story ended. All across this country, millions of women and men rose up from the grassroots to become the Reagan Revolution. And it didn't come from Washington. Washington despised Ronald Reagan. By the way, if you see a candidate who Washington embraces, run and hide. It came from the American people, and it turned this country around. We went from economic stagnation to booming growth, millions lifted from poverty into prosperity in the American dream. We went from our hostages languishing in Iran to winning the Cold War and tearing the Berlin Wall to the ground. The reason I am so optimistic, so encouraged, is the same thing is happening all over again. You know, when we launched our campaign on March 23rd at Liberty University, the New York Times promptly opined, Cruz cannot win because the Washington elites despise him. I kind of thought that was the whole point of the campaign. Look, if you think Washington is going great, that we're headed in the right direction, we just should keep going and fiddle a little bit around the edges, then I ain't your guy. If you think Washington is fundamentally broken, that there is a bipartisan corruption of career politicians in both parties who get in bed with lobbyists and special interests and grow Washington, and we need to take power out of Washington and back to we the people. That is what this campaign is all about. Well, the Times went on. They said, okay, maybe the grassroots is going to be with Cruz. But he ain't going to have any money. Because the Washington elites control all the money, and the lobbyists are all with other candidates that aren't going to rock the boat, aren't going to end the gravy train. Well, a few weeks ago, every campaign filed their fundraising reports. Out of 17 Republican candidates, do you know which campaign raised the most hard money? We did! In just over 3 months, collectively, we raised $14.3 million. That came from all 50 states. To date, we have over 225,000 contributions. The average contribution is $68. People all over the country who went to tedcruz.org. 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 It's tedcruz.org. That is the power of the grassroots. I want to say two things to close. The first is South Carolina is going to play an incredibly important role in the Republican primary this year. South Carolina's role is to ensure that the next Republican nominee is a real and consistent conservative. And that's the only way we win. Every time we nominate a campaign conservative who hadn't walked the walk, we lose over and over and over again. By the way, have you noticed that Washington loves to, when they run, they all run as us. They all run saying they're conservatives. Nobody on that stage in Cleveland stood up and said, I'm a squishy establishment moderate. I stand for nothing. They don't say that. And yet at the same time, they tell us if you're actually one of us, then you can't win. The only way to win is if we stand for our principles, if we stand for the Constitution and freedom, and we do it with a smile. And I want to ask each of you here to do three things. Number one, join us. We are building a grassroots army across this state. A grassroots army of courageous conservatives that are coming together. Join our team. We need county chairs. We need precinct chairs. This is from the ground. This is going to be won from the grassroots. The second thing I would ask of each and every one of you, go to our website, tedcruz.org, and contribute. Listen, some of you can max out. If you can, God love you. I promise you we will use the resources to communicate a positive, optimistic, conservative vision for the future. But everyone here can contribute something. Can give $10 or $25 or $50. If you're in high school, $10 is the cost of a pizza. And let me tell you the biggest reason to do so. Because when you do so, you've got skin in the game. You're invested. Then it's not my campaign. Then it is our campaign. The third thing I would ask of everyone here is to pray. No one who doesn't begin every day on his knees is fit to stand in the Oval Office. And I ask for everyone here to lift our nation up, that this awakening continue, that millions of Americans continue to rise up, that we claim the promise that if we humble ourselves and seek His face and turn from our wicked ways, that He will hear our prayers and heal our land. The last thing I want to say is this. Many of y'all have gotten to know my father, Rafael Cruz. 58 years ago, my dad fled Cuba. He was imprisoned. He was tortured in Cuba as a kid. When he came to America, he was just 18. He couldn't speak English. He had $100 sewn into his underwear. He got a job washing dishes, making 50 cents an hour. And he worked full time. He paid his way through school. And he went on to start a small business with my mom. Today, my dad is a pastor. He travels the country preaching the gospel. My whole life, my dad has been my hero. But I think back to what he told me over and over again when I was a boy. When we faced oppression in Cuba, I had a place to flee to. If we lose our freedom here, where do we go? That is why we are here tonight.
Because every one of us here, we are not prepared to go quietly into the night. We are not prepared to give up on our children and grandchildren. We will stand and fight for freedom. We will stand and fight for the Constitution. And together we will bring back morning in America, that shining city on a hill that is the United States of America. Thank you.